One innocent child was hurt, and the Federation thought it was a small incident. They understood the truth only when humanity stopped holding the galaxy together. Commander Velra Thos of the Kryn Sovereignty stood at her post on Station Epsilon 7, watching the cargo bay with the kind of bored contempt that came from 20 years of military service. The station, a massive ring of metal and commerce spinning in the void between three major trade routes, hummed with the usual chaos. Traders, diplomats, and freight haulers from 200 species crowded the docks, and Velra hated every single one of them equally. Well, almost equally. She reserved a special kind of disdain for humans. Deathworlders, they called them. Primitives from a gravity-cursed rock where everything, and I mean everything, was designed to kill you. The air was toxic with oxygen levels that would burn Kren lungs. The gravity was 1.4 times Federation standard. Their planet was covered in water that could drown you, deserts that could cook you, and ice caps that could freeze you solid. And somehow these mammals had not only survived but thrived. It was offensive, really. Velra adjusted her ceremonial sash, the one with 16 commendation medals pinned across her chest, and resumed her inspection walk. Her superiors had assigned her to oversee security protocols in Dock 12, which meant standing around looking important while dock workers did actual work. The Kryn way of military excellence, naturally. A freight hauler was unloading containers nearby, big metal boxes stamped with human symbols. Velra sneered. Humans did most of the heavy freight work in this sector, mainly because no other species was stupid enough to haul unstable reactor cores and volatile chemicals through jump points. Let the Deathworlders risk their short, brutish lives. That was the unspoken rule. She was reviewing a manifest on her datapad, not really reading it, when something small and fast collided with her legs. Velra stumbled, her datapad clattering to the deck, and looked down to see a tiny human child, maybe 3 or 4 years old by their stunted growth standards. The creature had dark, curly hair and wore a bright yellow jacket that was far too cheerful for Velra's mood. The child looked up with wide brown eyes, clearly startled. "Sorry," the child squeaked in that horrible human language that sounded like someone gargling gravel. Something inside Velra snapped. Maybe it was the 18-hour shift. Maybe it was the stack of ignored promotion requests gathering dust on some admiral's desk. Maybe it was just the fact that a Deathworlder, a primitive, had dared to touch her, a commander of the Kryn Sovereignty. She struck the child across the face with the back of her hand. Not hard by Kryn standards, just a disciplinary tap, the kind you'd give a misbehaving pet. But humans, with their fragile bones and thin skin, were not built like Kren. The little girl, Maya, her name was Maya, flew backward and hit the deck with a sickening crack. Blood poured from her nose, and she started screaming, that high-pitched wail that human young made when injured. "Watch where you're going, vermin," Velra spat, picking up her datapad. A human male, tall by their standards but still shorter than Velra, came running from the freight hauler. His face, already red from exertion, turned a deeper shade of crimson. Thomas Reeves, according to the ID badge clipped to his work vest. Standard cargo hauler, nothing special. "What did you do?" he roared, dropping to his knees beside the crying child. "Maya, baby, it's okay, Daddy's here." "Your spawn ran into me," Velra said, brushing imaginary dust from her uniform. "Consider this a lesson in station protocol. Keep your offspring under control, or I will file charges for assault on a Federation officer." Thomas scooped up his daughter, pressing his hand against her bleeding nose, and stared at Velra with an expression she could not quite read. Humans were terrible at proper emotional displays. Their faces did too many things at once, but there was something in his eyes, something cold and calculating that did not match the trembling rage in his voice. "You hit my daughter," he said slowly, each word measured. "And I will hit her again if she touches me," Velra replied. "Now remove yourself from my dock before I have you arrested." Station security, 2 Vrellan officers who had been watching from a distance, finally decided to intervene. They moved between Thomas and Velra, their hands on shock batons, but they were looking at the human, not the commander. "Sir, you need to take your child to medical," one of them said in that placating tone security used with angry civilians. The commander was within her rights to maintain personal space. Thomas looked at the security officers, then back at Velra, then down at his daughter who was sobbing into his shoulder. He said nothing. He just turned and walked toward the medical bay, his boots echoing on the metal deck, and that strange coldness never left his eyes. Velra watched him go and laughed. Humans, so emotional, so weak. She returned to her manifest, already forgetting the incident. By the end of her shift, She had filed a formal complaint against Thomas Reeves for failure to control a dependent in a restricted area. She recommended a fine and a suspension of his dock privileges. Her commanding officer, Captain Rin Moss, approved it without even reading the details. Standard procedure. What Velra did not know, what none of them knew, was that 17 other humans had witnessed the incident. 4 of them had recorded it on personal devices. Within an hour, the footage was spreading through the human networks that crisscrossed the station like a nervous system. Within 2 hours, it had reached every human ship, station, and colony within 6 jump points. Within 3 hours, something began to happen that the Galactic Federation had never seen before. The humans went quiet. The first sign came 8 hours after the incident. The human freight hauler Destiny's Fortune, scheduled to depart at 0600 station time, left 4 hours early without filing a flight plan. Station control tried to contact them, got no response, and watched helplessly as the ship jumped away into hyperspace. Odd, but not unprecedented. Humans were notoriously rebellious about regulations. By noon, 6 more human vessels had departed ahead of schedule. By 1800 hours, every single human ship docked at Station Epsilon 7 was gone. Captain Rin Moss called an officers' meeting in the command center, a circular room overlooking the docking bays. Velra attended, still smug about her complaint being approved. She barely listened as Moss droned on about departure anomalies and missing freight schedules. "Should we be concerned about this?" Lieutenant Kara Voss asked, her head tendrils twitching with anxiety. Kara was always anxious. Velra found it exhausting. "About what?" Moss replied, manipulating a holographic display that showed ship traffic. "The humans leaving. Good riddance, I say. Troublesome species, always complaining about safety standards and demanding higher pay. Let them go sulk on their death world." Velra smiled. Finally, someone with sense. But Kara persisted. "Sir, the humans handle 42% of our freight logistics. If they are all leaving, then other species will fill the gap." Moss interrupted. "The Vrelin are excellent haulers. The Thaxian Trade Collective has been asking for more routes. This is an opportunity, Lieutenant, not a crisis." The meeting ended with everyone agreeing that the human departure was probably a good thing. Velra returned to her quarters, took a long hot vapor bath in the Kren style, and went to sleep feeling satisfied. She woke up to alarms. Day 2 of the silence, and it was spreading. Not just at Station Epsilon 7. Every human ship at every station in every system within 20 light years was departing. No warnings, no explanations, no communications. They just left. Human cargo sat on docks, unpicked up. Human workers did not show up for shifts. Human-owned businesses closed without notice. Doors locked, lights off. The human sectors of Station Epsilon 7, usually bustling with their loud music and strange food smells, were empty. Not abandoned, empty. Like everyone had simply vanished in the middle of their lives. Coffee cups still sat on tables. Children's toys lay scattered in residential corridors, but no humans. Moss was less confident in the second meeting. "We have reports," he said slowly, staring at his datapad like it might bite him. "From other stations. The humans are all gone. Every system. It is coordinated." "Coordinated how?" Velra demanded. "They are cargo haulers and dock workers, not a military force. They have no central government. Earth itself barely has a unified voice in the Federation Council. And yet they are gone," Kara said quietly. "All of them. At once." An economist advisor, some Vrelin with too many degrees and not enough common sense, spoke up from the corner. "If I may, Captain. The humans were not just haulers, they were mechanics, sanitation workers, heavy equipment operators. They handled hazardous material disposal. They ran most of the recycling plants. They, spit it out," Moss snapped. "They did all the jobs nobody else wanted, sir," the economist finished. "The dangerous ones. The dirty ones. The ones in high gravity or toxic environments. We have been operating under the assumption that they were lucky to have these jobs, but now I think we need to consider that we were lucky they were willing to do them." Velra laughed. She actually laughed. "You are worried about garbage collection? About freight? Hire more workers." "We tried," the economist said, pulling up statistics. "The Vrelin refused to transport unstable reactor cores. Too dangerous. The Thaxian Trade Collective will not enter high radiation zones. Against their religious beliefs. The Pelex will not work in anything above 1.2 standard gravity. Medical exemptions. The humans were the only ones who would do it, Captain. And now they are not." Day 3, the station started to smell. Garbage piled up in collection zones because the automated systems designed by humans and maintained by humans were failing. Nobody else knew how to fix them. 3 medical waste incinerators broke down, and suddenly nobody wanted to volunteer to manually handle biohazardous material. Food shipments stopped arriving. Turns out, most of the agricultural haulers were human-operated. Fuel deliveries slowed to a trickle. The entertainment district, which relied heavily on human bartenders and cooks, shut down. Turns out, nobody else could make food spicy enough to satisfy Vrellan palates or mild enough for Pelek's digestive systems. Humans had this weird ability to cook for everyone. Day 4, Station Epsilon 7 went on rationing. Day 5, 3 more stations reported complete system failures in waste management, with toxic buildup reaching critical levels. Day 6, a Vrellan cargo hauler refused to transport a shipment of medical isotopes, citing safety concerns. The shipment was bound for a children's hospital on Pelek's Prime. Without it, 12 children would die. Every other shipping company in the sector also refused. The shipment sat on a dock waiting for someone brave enough or stupid enough to move it. Nobody came. Day 7. The Galactic Federation Council held an emergency session. Velro watched the broadcast from the station's mess hall, which was serving the last of the fresh food. Everything else was freeze-dried emergency rations now, and those were running low. Council member Thrain of the Pelek's coalition stood at the podium, his blue skin pale with stress. "We need to address the human situation," he said, trying to sound diplomatic. "They have withdrawn. All of them. We need to open communications and understand their grievances." Council member Voss, a Kryn like Velra, scoffed. "Grievances? They are Deathworlders, primitives. They should be grateful we allowed them into the Federation at all. If they want to leave, let them. We do not negotiate with 40%, Thrain shouted, his diplomatic mask slipping. They handle 40% of all freight in Federation space, 60% of hazardous materials, 70% of high-gravity station maintenance, 80% of deep space rescue operations. They are everywhere, doing everything, and we never noticed because we were too busy being grateful they were not bothering us. Then we adapt, Voss said coldly. We are the Galactic Federation, 200 species. We do not need one group of Deathworld mammals. Thrain laughed, a bitter sound. Do you know what the humans call themselves in their own language? The ones who do the dirty work. They call themselves the infrastructure. And you can live without a lot of things, Council Member Voss, but you cannot live without infrastructure. The broadcast cut to commercial, some advertisement for Vrellan luxury cruises. That would never happen now that the fuel deliveries had stopped. Velra sat there, eating her tasteless ration bar, and felt the first flicker of doubt. Day 8, the ship arrived. It came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Epsilon 7 system, moving slowly, deliberately, like a predator that knew its prey could not run. Station sensors picked it up immediately, and every officer in command rushed to the displays. It was human, clearly human, with that blocky utilitarian design they favored, but there were no markings, no registration codes, no government insignias, no company logos, just bare gray metal, scarred from 1,000 jumps, and absolutely silent on all communication channels. Hail them, Moss ordered. Silence. Hail them again. Nothing. The ship did not respond to greetings, warnings, or threats. It just kept coming, closing the distance with patient inevitability. Station defense systems powered up, targeting lasers locking onto the vessel, and then they shut down. Every single defensive weapon on Station Epsilon 7 went dark simultaneously. What just happened? Moss screamed at his technicians. I don't know, sir, one of them stammered, frantically typing on his console. The systems just turned off. All of them, like someone flipped a switch. Get them back online. I am trying, sir, but the access codes have been changed. I am locked out. We are all locked out. The human ship docked at Bay 7, the magnetic clamps engaging with a clang that echoed through the entire station. For 5 long minutes, nothing happened. Velro watched the dock feed from the command center, her hearts pounding in a way they had not pounded since her first combat mission. The airlock opened, and 3 humans emerged. Just 3. Not soldiers. No armor. No weapons that the scanners could detect. Just 3 humans in plain clothes, walking through the dock like they owned the place. One was a woman with graying hair tied back in a simple bun, wearing mechanic's coveralls. One was a man with dark skin and kind eyes, dressed in a doctor's white coat. One was another woman, younger, with red hair and a teacher's patient expression. Station security met them at the dock entrance, a full squad of 12 Vrelin officers with shock batons and stun rifles. "Stop right there," the squad leader ordered. "You are in violation of—" The mechanic held up a datapad and the security officer's helmet display flickered. Every officer in the squad suddenly saw their personal files appear before their eyes. Bank accounts, home addresses, names of family members, search histories, everything. "Move," the mechanic said quietly, and the security squad parted like water. The three humans walked through Station Epsilon 7 unopposed. Personnel scattered before them, not running, exactly, but definitely not staying in their path. There was something about the way they moved, calm and purposeful, that screamed danger more effectively than any weapon. They arrived at the command center, and the doors, locked and secured, simply opened. More hacking, more human technical superiority that nobody had bothered to notice because they were too busy being grateful the humans fixed things. Velra stood near the back of the room trying to look unconcerned and failing miserably. Moss, to his credit, stood his ground behind his command console though his hands were shaking. "This is a restricted area," Moss said, trying to sound authoritative. "You have no clearance to—" The three humans ignored him completely. They walked past the captain, past the other officers, and stopped directly in front of Velra. The doctor, the man with kind eyes that were not kind at all in this moment, placed a small metal box on the console beside her. He opened it slowly, and inside was Velra's own service medal, her highest commendation, the one she had earned for bravery in the Kryn-Pelex border conflicts. It had been crushed flat, the metal twisted and broken. "You hit a child," the doctor said in perfect Crane language, his accent flawless. "Our child, a 3-year-old girl named Maya Reeves. You struck her hard enough to break her nose and give her a concussion. You then threatened her father and filed a complaint against him." Velra opened her mouth to respond, to justify, to explain that it was within her rights, but no words came out. The teacher stepped forward, pulling out her own datapad. "We have spent the last 8 days removing you from existence, Commander Velra Thos. Every commendation you ever earned has been flagged as fraudulent in the Federation database. Every promotion you received is under investigation. Your military pension has been frozen pending ethics review. Your family's shipping company, the one you are so proud of, has lost every single contract they held. Nobody will do business with them. Nobody will hire them. Nobody will even speak to them. Your personal accounts are empty," the mechanic added, her voice flat. "We did not steal the money. We just made every bank believe you are a security risk. They froze everything themselves. Your apartment lease was terminated for non-payment. Your transit privileges have been revoked. As of this moment, you do not officially exist in any system the Federation relies on." Velra found her voice finally, though it came out as a whisper. You cannot do this. I am a Federation officer. I have rights. You had a career," the doctor interrupted. "You had a reputation. You had a future, past tense, because you decided that a child's life was worth less than your pride." The three humans turned to face Captain Moss and the other officers watching in stunned silence. "We sent a message to the Federation Council 17 minutes ago," the teacher said. "It was very simple. We said send Commander Velra Thos to Earth to stand trial for assault on a minor, or we stop. Everything. Food, fuel, freight, maintenance, waste management, medical transport, every single thing we do to keep your Federation running, all of it stops until you give us justice. You cannot hold the entire Federation hostage over one incident," Moss sputtered. The mechanic smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "We are not holding anyone hostage, Captain. We are just going on strike. Turns out, when you treat people like they are disposable, they eventually dispose of you." The three humans walked out of the command center, back through the station, and returned to their ship. It departed as silently as it had arrived, jumping away into hyperspace, and left Station Epsilon 7 in chaos. For 2 days the Federation Council debated. Stations across Federation space were failing. Food riots broke out on 3 planets. A medical crisis on Pelex Prime killed 17 people when transport ships refused to carry emergency supplies. A reactor meltdown on Station Gamma 12 was narrowly avoided only because one human engineer, out of pity, talked a Vrelin technician through an emergency shutdown over a radio channel. On the 3rd day, the council voted, an unanimous decision. Commander Velra Thos was to be extradited to Earth immediately to face trial in human courts under human law. Velra, stripped of her rank and her medals, was placed in shackles and loaded onto a transport ship. She spent the 3-week journey in a holding cell, trying to understand how her entire life had collapsed in 8 days. 8 days. Because she hit a giant. Earth was not what Velra expected. She had imagined a primitive world of mud huts and savage tribes. Despite knowing intellectually that humans had achieved faster than light travel, her prejudices so carefully maintained, so deeply rooted, did not survive first contact with reality. The transport ship landed at Geneva Starport, a gleaming facility that put most Federation stations to shame. Velra was escorted by 2 human bailiffs, not roughly, but firmly, through customs and into a ground transport. They drove through the city, and she stared out the window at architecture that blended efficiency with beauty, at parks where children played under the watchful eyes of adults, at streets that were clean and safe and orderly. The courthouse was a massive building of white stone and glass, surrounded by gardens. Inside, the walls were lined with symbols and texts from 100 human cultures, a reminder that humans, unlike most Federation species, had unified dozens of different peoples into one civilization. The trial lasted 3 days. Velra was given a defense attorney, a human woman named Rachel Kim, who argued passionately that the assault, while reprehensible, should be judged in the context of cultural differences between species. She presented evidence of Kryn disciplinary customs, expert testimony on interspecies miscommunication, and character witnesses who spoke to Velra's military service. The prosecution, a soft-spoken man named David Torres, presented the video footage of the incident. He showed Maya's medical reports. He called Thomas Reeves to the stand, and the cargo hauler testified calmly about his daughter's nightmares and fear of strangers now. He did not rage. He did not demand blood. He just told the truth, and somehow that was worse than any anger could have been. The jury, 12 humans selected from different continents and backgrounds, deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. Assault on a minor. The verdict was unanimous. The judge, an elderly woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, looked down at Velra from the bench. "Commander Thos," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority that had nothing to do with military rank, "you struck a child in anger. In doing so, you violated not just our laws but a fundamental principle that transcends species and culture. The protection of the young is not a human value. It is a universal one, and you failed." Velra stood there, shackled and stripped of everything she had been, and waited for the execution order. Because that was what Deathworlders did, right? They killed those who wronged them. They were savage and brutal, and your sentence is 2 years of community service, the judge continued. You will work at Geneva Children's Hospital, in the pediatric wing, under supervision. You will assist the medical staff. You will help care for sick and injured children. You will learn, Commander, that strength is not the ability to harm the weak. Strength is the choice to protect them. Velva was released from shackles and escorted to a small apartment near the hospital. No cell, no guards at her door, just an ankle monitor and a schedule. She reported to the hospital the next morning, terrified and angry and confused. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of pediatrics, met her at the entrance. She was a small woman with tired eyes and steady hands. "Welcome to Geneva Children's Hospital, Velra," she said, using no title, no rank, just the name. "You are going to help us today with basic tasks, cleaning rooms, delivering meals, keeping records, nothing complicated. Can you do that?" Velra nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The first day was the hardest. She cleaned rooms where children lay in beds, attached to machines that beeped and hummed. She delivered trays of food to young patients who thanked her in small, weak voices. She watched doctors and nurses move with practiced efficiency, their entire focus on healing, on comforting, on protecting. She saw human children of every color and background, and nobody cared about their differences. Sick was sick. Young was young. They all deserved care. On the 3rd day, she was asked to sit with a little boy named Daniel while his parents went to get food. He was 5 years old, recovering from surgery to repair a heart defect. He looked up at Velra, at her strange Kryn features, her scaled skin and double-jointed arms, and smiled.
"You look different," he said in that blunt way children had. "That's cool."
"Are you an alien?" "Yes," Velra managed. "Cool," Daniel repeated. "My dad says aliens are people too, just from different places." He showed her his toy, a small starship model, and told her about how he wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. He talked about his friends at school, about his dog, about his favorite foods. He treated her like a person, not a monster, not a criminal, just someone sitting beside his bed. Velra felt something crack inside her chest. The weeks passed, and she worked at the hospital every day. She learned the names of the children. She read them stories when they could not sleep. She held their hands when they were scared. She watched them recover, watched them laugh, watched them go home to families that loved them. She thought about Maya Reeves often, the little girl she had struck in anger. She had filed a request through official channels to apologize, but the family had declined contact. She did not blame them. 6 months into her sentence, Dr. Chen found her in the break room during a rare quiet moment. "You are doing good work, Velra," she said, pouring 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. "The staff has noticed. The children like you. I do not deserve their trust," Velra said quietly. "No," Chen agreed, sitting down across from her. "You don't. Not yet. But you are earning it. That is how redemption works. Not through words, through actions, through choosing, every single day to be better than you were." "Why?" Velra asked, the question that had haunted her since the trial. "Why not execute me? Why not imprison me? I harmed a child. I saw the footage. I saw what I did. In Kryn culture, such an act would—" "We are not Kryn," Chen interrupted gently. "We are human, and humans believe that people can change. Not always, not everyone. But we believe in the possibility. That is our strength, Velra. Not our high gravity or our dangerous world. Our strength is that we do not give up on the idea that tomorrow can be better than today." The remaining 18 months passed in a blur of work and learning. Velra attended therapy sessions mandated by the court, where she confronted her prejudices and her anger. She learned about human history, about their wars and their peace, about the countless times they had nearly destroyed themselves and chose differently at the last moment. She learned that Deathworlders were not savage because their planet was harsh. They were resilient. They were adaptable, and they had learned, through millennia of struggle, that protecting the vulnerable was not weakness. It was the foundation of civilization itself. On her last day at the hospital, the staff threw her a small party. Nothing elaborate, just cake in the break room and cards from some of the children she had helped care for. Daniel, now 7 and fully recovered, had drawn her a picture of them standing together under a smiling sun. "Thank you for being my friend," the card said in crayon. Velra cried, something Kryn rarely did, and knew she would never be the same person who had stepped off that transport ship 2 years ago. She returned to Station Epsilon 7 a month later, no longer a commander, no longer even a citizen in good standing. Just Velra Thos, trying to start over. The humans had returned to work across Federation space, their strike ending the moment the trial concluded. Trade resumed. Stations functioned. Life continued. But something had changed. The Galactic Federation Council passed new legislation protecting juveniles of all species from assault. They established an independent oversight board for station security, with representatives from every member species including humans. They formally apologized to the Reeves family and offered reparations, which Thomas Reeves accepted on behalf of his daughter. Maya recovered fully. The footage of her playing in a park on Station Epsilon 7, laughing and chasing other children, was released to the press by her father, a reminder that justice had been served, that accountability had been met, and that life continued. Velra found work as a janitor on the station, the only job anyone would hire her for. She cleaned floors and emptied trash bins, and she did it with quiet dignity. Sometimes she saw humans in the corridors, and they would nod to her politely. No forgiveness, not exactly, but acknowledgement, a recognition that she had faced consequences and survived them. One day, 6 months after her return, she was cleaning in Dock 12 when she saw him. Thomas Reeves, loading cargo onto his freight hauler, with little Maya running around his legs, wearing that same bright yellow jacket. Velra froze, her cleaning equipment clattering to the deck. Thomas looked up, saw her, and his expression went carefully neutral. Maya peered around her father's leg, curious, not afraid. Velra knew she should walk away, should give them space, should not intrude on their lives any further, but she could not move, could not breathe. Thomas said something to his daughter, too quiet to hear, and Maya nodded. Then he walked over to Velra, slowly, and stopped a respectful distance away. "I heard you served your sentence," he said, his voice level. "Yes," Velra managed. I want to apologize. I know it means nothing. I know I cannot undo what I did, but I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry." Thomas studied her for a long moment, and Velra saw that coldness from 2 years ago. Still there, still calculating, but there was something else now too. Not forgiveness, but perhaps the distant possibility of it. My daughter has nightmares sometimes, Thomas said quietly. About being hit by someone bigger and stronger. About being helpless. You did that. You created that fear in a child who had never known it before. I know, Velra whispered. But, Thomas continued, and the word hung in the air like a lifeline. She also knows what happened after. She knows that justice exists. She knows that even powerful people face consequences. She knows that the galaxy, for all its flaws, will protect children. So maybe she will have fewer nightmares as she grows up. Maybe she will feel safer. He turned to walk away, then paused. We are not friends, Velrathos. We will never be friends. But you served your time. You faced what you did. That is more than most people would do. He returned to his daughter, scooped her up in his arms, and continued loading his ship. Maya waved at Velra over her father's shoulder, a small gesture of innocent friendliness that broke and mended something in Velra's heart all at once. Velra returned to her cleaning, but the weight she had carried for 2 years felt lighter now. Not gone, never gone, but bearable. The station hummed around her, humans and aliens working side by side, the infrastructure of civilization continuing because people, all people, chose to make it continue. And somewhere in the cargo bay a little girl in a yellow jacket laughed and played, safe under the protection of a galaxy that had learned a hard lesson about the price of arrogance.